Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth NFL podcast. I'm your host, Anish Gupta,
And I'm your co-host, Srikar Rajendran.
and we're back. And this time we've got a lot to talk about. This isn't like one of those dead weeks. It's right after the NFL draft. This one was a fun one. This one was crazy, crazy exciting. I mean, the first 10 picks, Srikar and I went live, and we were like, okay, it's kind of standard. It's just how it's going to be. And then, oh my God, the next 10, 11 through 20, there were just trade after trade after trade, blockbuster move after blockbuster move. So we're going to get into as much as we can. And obviously, Shrikar and my teams didn't really do too much that was notable in the draft. I guess, we could say maybe the Niners didn't trade Debo, and like the Browns waited and got, a defensive tackle in Perrion Winfrey. But let's be real. Most of the NFL world is not ready to hear that the Browns did that and signed a kicker. So we're going to talk about some actual notable. Yeah, Chase. And hey, don't forget, we released Chase McLaughlin. We got a guy by the name of Blewett, Chris Blewett. I forget what team had him last year, but
Was it Commanders?
Washington. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, Washington. So we have a guy named Blewett as our kicker. So hopefully he doesn't blow that job. But let's start off with something relevant to the draft. We're gonna go with favorite pick. A pick that we really liked. So I'll let Shrikar start. I'll give you a quick hint. I don't like it because it's mainstream, but you know what? I'll let him go through with it.
Yeah, it is, but it's something that, I've kind of covered for the majority of the offseason, and it's Malik Willis to the Titans. And if we recall correctly, in our last episode,
we got to put that clip in there. That was lit.
We'll try to fit in the clip.
Exactly.
So yep, but we called it. We thought the Titans would take a quarterback, and they did. They traded up, and they got, in my opinion, the best quarterback prospect in the entire draft, Malik Willis. He spent 2 years on the bench at Auburn. He transferred to Liberty, where he obviously showcased tremendous arm strength and athleticism. He was thought to be a first-round pick by many people, but he went at number 86 overall to the Titans. They can develop him behind Ryan Tannehill, and we'll talk about it later because it's in our slate of topics. But if Malik Willis turns into what his ceiling is, I think this will be the best pick in the 2022 draft. I will go on record saying that.
Well, I mean, so to go back to our take, Srikar had it being Malik Willis. I had it being Sam Howell. And we called this in the first round. So we're not going to say we got it exactly right, but we did say, they would trade up, and they did. It was just maybe 2 rounds later. Obviously, I'm not as high as Malik Willis as Jack and Srikar are, mainly Srikar, but I do agree Malik to the Titans is actually a good fit. I will say that. And obviously to get him in the 3rd round, I think is pretty good value, especially at pick 86. But I will say this. If guys are falling this far, right? NFL scouts are in consensus then that I feel like for these quarterbacks, aside from Pickett, NFL scouts really didn't think that these quarterbacks could be true, NFL impact guys. So I guess that was the consensus, but the Titans, why not take a flyer in the 86th pick? There's really no downside to doing that. And obviously this staff has worked with guys like Marcus Mariota before. Ryan Tannehill, don't get me wrong. Yes, he is a pocket passer, but he was a former college receiver, right? So he is a mobile guy. And now you get in Malik Willis, who can kind of maybe learn how to progress through reads like Ryan Tannehill can do. I think it's a great fit. I'm going to go with my favorite pick. I'm saving a lot of the ones because when we talk about other teams in the draft, so this is just going to be the only time we really talk about them. But it's going to be Jahan Dotson to the Washington Commanders. I think people are overreacting to Washington not taking a safety, right? Like obviously trading back and not taking Kyle Hamilton. I think Cam Curl has all the upside in the world. I think he's a way better hitter than Kyle Hamilton. I think he's a better box safety. And yeah, Kyle can be better, sideline to sideline in terms of coverage, but I think Cam Curl overall at least has shown his upside in the NFL. And I think Washington really needed a receiver. I think this goes to show it's a make or break year for Carson Wentz with, the guys that they have on roster. I think Jahan Dotson is a perfect guy to put at Y alongside Terry McLaurin. And then you got Curtis Samuel in the slot. So I'm all for what, Washington did, and they got some assets back with it. I'm cool with it. I think Jahan Dotson was another guy that I gave a 1st round grade to in terms of receivers. So sure, they might have taken him over a guy that I liked a little bit more, like Treylon Burks, who I believe was the last receiver to go in the 1st round. Yep. But I'm happy with what Washington did in that perspective. And then obviously they followed it up with Sam Howell. But we're just focusing on one selection, and I was a big fan of the Jahan Dotson pick.
I didn't mind that pick either. I feel like people went a little bit too crazy over it because if you think about it, for one, like you said, they instead of trading up for a receiver like the Saints and the Lions, did they trade back?
Right.
And, Jahan Dotson was one of those guys that was in the conversation with a Treylon Burks as someone who could, go in the first round. He was a very late riser. So I really don't mind the pick. I think, again, he'll fit Ron Rivera's offense, and it should be exciting to see how he uses him there. And obviously it's helpful for your boy Carson Wentz. We'll see what happens there, or Sam Howell, whichever. I'm not implying anything, but it'll be interesting to see how he's used in this offense.
Yeah, and I think there was kind of a consensus actually out there. People see, this just goes to show the media is they're not kept in touch with what goes on. So I have a couple friends at the office, and they know some guys within the Falcons and the Jets inner office. And the Falcons knew they were taking Drake London throughout. So the whole Garrett Wilson was in a complete smokescreen. And I know one of the guys who helped make the call for like Sauce Gardner with the Jets. Like these teams knew what they were doing, right? They have a board out there. So for people in the media, because now I'm kind of on both sides, and what I'm learning is like people have their boards really kept a secret. You really don't know what other teams are thinking, and they think very differently. So to say, consensus, this guy's a consensus, first overall selection or a consensus best prospect, that may not be the same thing across, teams. So I think that's one thing people need to know, especially with the NFL draft. But let's get kind of more into the beefy stuff. So we're going to start off obviously with the AJ Brown trade. That was a huge shock. I think we weren't live, but I literally saw it and I was like, oh my God. And I literally immediately went to the chat and I was like, oh my God, AJ Brown's an Eagle. And then, my roommate's hearing me like, dude, why are you yelling? And I'm like, dude, a top 10 receiver literally just got traded and to a great place. Philadelphia, you saw how excited Hurts and Brown were, and you're getting, AJ Brown on one side, Devontae Smith on the other. And if you want to keep Jalen Reagor in the slot, I don't mind it. That's a dangerous core in Philly. So I'll ask you this, Srikar, maybe, initial thoughts on the trade, because, we can talk about it from both sides, but let's look at it this way. Have the Eagles really caught up with the Cowboys?
Oh, I definitely think they have. Okay. Howie Roseman clearly was not content with last year's surprise playoff berth. I'm sure he heard all the noise. And, Roseman had arguably the best weekend of anybody. Obviously, we had that shocker on Thursday night. It's just caught us all by surprise. Signed him to a 4-year, $100 million extension. $57 million is going to be guaranteed. And then he bolstered his defense with a pair of Georgia Bulldogs. He went with Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. And Dean, in my opinion, is a steal. He fell about, 60 picks because of an injury that was really not career threatening. So I definitely do think the Eagles have more than enough to challenge the Cowboys this season. And speaking on this from the Titans angle, Tennessee sending AJ to Philly it just opens up a lot of potential problems for a team that last year was the 1 seed in the AFC, because right now the Titans are, removing their best weapon in the passing game and replacing him with a rookie in Treylon Burks, while moving on from Julio Jones. And obviously they got Robert Woods, but he's coming off a torn ACL. So I think Mike Vrabel, he is going to be betting very heavily on a rebound season from Derrick Henry. He missed 9 games last year with a foot injury. If Henry falters, I'm not betting on it to happen or anything, but if it does happen, suddenly the offense is on 2 receivers in a new system. You got one that's a rookie, one that's currently rehabbing, and, an underwhelming group as a whole to help Ryan Tannehill lead Tennessee to another AFC South crown. And there are those people that are going to say, the Titans are only copying what franchises like the Packers and the Chiefs did. There's a key difference here. Tannehill isn't Aaron Rodgers. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's going to elevate those around him. And he's also not making the same kind of salary of those two. But anyways, Tennessee, they could have paid Brown and kept their best receiver, but instead they took a big gamble here. We'll see how it works out, but in the short term, it's a risky play. Right now, I would say the Eagles are the clear winners here.
I'm not so sure in that retrospective trade that they're the clear winners. I think both teams benefit, actually. And let's start off first with the Eagles, though. I think you get Jordan Davis was a great pick. I think he's going to, play alongside Fletcher Cox, who's getting up there in age. Obviously, the Eagles were kind of in a, mixy, murky situation to bring him back. They eventually did. Now, in regards to the AJ Brown trade, now listen, you give him 25 mil annually. Again, I hate how the receiver market is going. I really just don't agree with it at all. And for the Titans, look, Traylon Burks' comp, in the mainstream media was AJ Brown, and yes, I do see it. Personally, I think like Hines Ward was a way cooler comp in my opinion, but obviously the media is not going to compliment me for that. But look, for the Titans, here's my thing, and I'm not too mad at what they did, especially because I was hoping that they took Traylon Burks with that 18th pick. This is a guy who plays very similar, and if you look at their division, they don't really have top tier corners. Sure, Stephon Gilmore, but like let's be real, he's kind of up there in age, and I think Kenny Moore is going to be their ex cornerback. So, um, I think this is a really big opportunity for him to just show out his rookie year, right? He's going to get all the targets in the world. It's going to give him all the confidence because that really is what it is in the NFL for these rookies. I think he's going into a good situation, a stable coaching staff. Mike Vrabel is always going to keep his team in it. This is a team who's had 9 or more wins in the last 5 years. Okay, so this is still a really stable organization. They brought in Austin Hooper. I think Robert Woods will probably play on the outside with Westbrook Ikini rotating with Traylon Burks out the slot. So I'm not actually mad at what the Titans did. And they save a lot of money because Ryan Tannehill's contract too, right? It's kind of holding them there. But once they get rid of that, right, you're talking about a lot of cap room for a team that's still got a lot of players on both sides of the ball. I'm not too mad at it. I think that money that for AJ Brown can definitely go towards more positions of need, like O-line, definitely some people in the back end. I'm actually okay with what the Titans did.
Right, but then there, it kind of depends on what Tennessee does with it. But I'll say this. He is comp to AJ Brown, and I do agree. I see similarities in both of their play styles, but just because he's going to fit that role and just because he plays like him doesn't mean he's going to be him.
It doesn't mean that, but I think you get a guy who's at least been a receiver one before and shown production, right? That's another thing. It's one thing in the draft to have upside. It's another thing to have both. He has both production and upside, and you're going to feed him. Like you're going to give him a lot of targets. Like that's just how in that offense, it's how it's going to be. It was kind of the same thing with Ja'Marr Chase. We knew he was going to get touches. I'm not saying Traylon Burks is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. Please don't think that, but with these rookie receivers, volume is very key. Justin Jefferson got volume. Odell Beckham got volume. Ja'Marr Chase got volume. So if these rookie receivers are going to be the number one guy in their offense, they are going to receive targets. And obviously, as you mentioned with Derrick Henry, the Titans are already a run-first offense who thrive off play action. So,
right, but then what if, as I said, what if Henry falters then?
No, well, they went 7-2 without him, and that was with AJ Brown and Julio injured. So like that's what I'm saying. Like they'll be fine. I trust their coaching staff. I trust a stable organization like this. I really don't think there was a loser in this one. I think both teams benefited. And for the Eagles, though, there's going to be some added pressure on Jalen Hurts. Now you have two guys on the outside that can really separate and get the ball in space and make plays with it. So this is a kind of a make or break for Jalen Hurts, right? Like you made the playoffs, you've got to do it again. If you've made it last year with what you had, you got to do it this time. And you're not going to be able to play that many non-playoff teams next year. You're going to have a harder schedule. Exactly. So let's see. But back to my question to you, I'm going to say, I think the Eagles and Washington got better, and I think the Cowboys got worse over the offseason. So I had a hot take on our TikTok saying the Cowboys would finish third in their division. I really don't think it's becoming more and more realistic. I'll just
say the gap is closed significantly. Like it's the NFC East, so there's always no real clear cut, favorite.
Right.
Especially here, like it's very murky.
Right. So we're gonna transition then, keep it cool like we did, since we did talk about speaking of the NFC East, we're gonna go to the New York Giants, the one team we didn't talk about, and then we're gonna talk about the New York Jets, two New York teams who obviously shared the brightest stage in the top 10 and both nailed their picks, I think, right? I'll let you maybe recap what the Jets did and what the Giants did. Obviously, we know what they did. The Jets took Jermaine Johnson in pick 26. They took Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, and then the Giants took Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. So why don't you go ahead?
I mean, you think about the past decade, the Jets and Giants have just had New York in so much pain for all that time. But on Thursday night, I feel like they've, both rekindled hope. And obviously, as you said, the Jets landed 3 top-end prospects, and Big Blue obviously got Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau, which is a really, really good haul for Joe Schoen, who's a first-time GM, arguably the 2 most talented players in the entire class. I've seen people argue it. And obviously for Joe Douglas, It was all about helping Zach Wilson and also bolstering Robert Saleh's defense. I think he did a good job of doing that there. Just great classes to basically jumpstart two franchises that were down in the dumps. So to Joe Shane and Joe Douglas, the two Joes in New York, tip my cap off to you guys. I think it was great.
Agreed. I mean, so in my mock draft, I'd heard that there was buzz that the Jets were deciding between Sauce and Jermaine in pick 4, and I didn't see the latest thing that they were locked in on Sauce when we had our mock draft competition. So I put Jermaine at 4. Literally at the 4th overall pick, I put Jermaine Johnson. He ended up going at 26, but I thought when the Jets traded up, I think we all knew, once he went past Dallas and Baltimore, he was getting selected right then and there. Mm-hmm. And obviously Jets fans are excited, even though they're going to finish 4th in the division again, which is funny to me. But I like the picks. I think Sauce and Garrett. Garrett was my number 1 receiver, including injuries. Excluding it was JMO, but including injuries, it was number 1. So I thought that was a good pick. And then for the Giants, my only thing I would have said was, why didn't you take Kayvon at 7? Because the Panthers weren't getting him, so you would rather have that choice between the 3 tackles than go Kayvon.
Well, maybe they were worried. I think on the flip side, maybe they were worried that the Panthers could take Kayvon. Yeah. So let's get Kayvon now. We're fine with Evan Neal. We'll take him at 7. Panthers were
not taking. With the edge talent that they have, they weren't. I think the only thing that I was thinking was the Panthers trade back and someone were to leapfrog them to take Kayvon.
Yeah, maybe that would have been a possibility.
That was the only thing. But I think, Evan Neal, I think, is the best tackle. I think Ike Ekwonu is the best O-lineman, if that makes sense. Because I think if Evan Neal doesn't succeed at tackle, you can't put him anywhere else. But Ekwonu has more versatility. So, maybe you could have done something like that. But otherwise, I'm okay with it. I think the Giants nailed it. They got their 2 guys who are going to make immediate impact on the place that wins you games, the lines of scrimmage. So again, New York teams, hats off to you. And then we're going to switch it to another kind of East Coast team, see how it transitions. The Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I really don't want to praise them. It really hurts to say. But they get a quarterback. They get the only quarterback to be picked in the top, 3. It was the top 73. There you go. Yeah, because pick 74 was Ritter. Yeah, so in the top 73 picks, it's I think the second longest in the common draft era. Only 1 quarterback went, and it was Kenny Pickett, literally from down the hall, from the University of Pitt. I'm going to start us off on this one. I love the pick. Kenny Pickett was my quarterback 1. And Pickett, Howell, I was torn in terms of what I liked, but Pickett was the perfect selection here. And here's why. Look, for everybody who's saying the Steelers should have gone with Malik Willis, let's look at their roster right now. They have a championship level defense. Okay. They have great personnel on the offense with Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson out the slot, Claypool, and now George Pickens, right? And Pat Freiermuth. And they use the rest of their picks to kind of bolster the O-line a little bit. Why the hell would you get a guy who's so boom or bust right now? No, but what is the upside going to do for you in 3 years when you have to pay all these defensive guys and your offensive guys? What is the upside?
How high is Kenny Pickett's ceiling?
So that's my point, though. For their offense, what they just needed is a guy who can at least get the ball to them, because you don't need a guy who's going to drop 30, 40 points. You just need a guy who's less turnover prone and is going to win you games like that. How do the Steelers win their games?
Will that win you Super Bowls?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. With the Steelers defense, I think they will. If you can keep games with 20-16, 20-19, stuff like that, in the playoffs, I agree. I think it falls down to the offense, and I think you're going to need enough offensive upside like that. But to say Kenny Pickett can't score points, I completely disagree with. This isn't a guy who has no offensive ceiling. That's just not true. He's the best quarterback at progressing reads out of anyone in this draft. And sure, the upside with Malik Willis is there, but the work you'd have to do on him as a passer, it's way more than guys like Jalen Hurts, who still needs to work on it, right? Malik Willis is way less polished than Jalen Hurts. I don't think you guys realize when he played Power 5 competition, he would have 3 interception games, 0 touchdowns. That's really bad. And I think NFL scouts saw that and said, okay, he's not ready for the NFL competition. And sure, he has all the traits, and I will give you that. But the Steelers do not want to spend their time garnering and training a quarterback when they have a team that's really good right now. And I think Pickett offers all the stability in the world. He's not going to throw, 4 picks and mess up what your offense is doing. He's a guy that can take these 16-play drives and make it work. So I'm glad with the pick. I think it's a slam dunk. And sure, he's similar to Trubisky, but he's first of all, he doesn't have as much overstride. Second, his accuracy is better outside the pocket. And third, he's more mobile. So I'm okay with the Kenny Pickett thing. Obviously, there is some hope with Malik Willis, but I'm just going to say it right then and there. I don't think Malik Willis hits a ceiling, which is what everyone's thinking is a, bona fide better Russell Wilson. That's just, I don't see that. I don't. So I'll let you take it over. Obviously, I know you're going to disagree, but I think for what I've said, this is what the Steelers do. This is how they play their football. They've never had a mobile, crazy quarterback. So I'm fine with what they did.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bring Willis into it. I'm only going to talk about Pickett. I'm only going to talk about Pittsburgh. As we said before, Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback selected in the top 73, let alone the first round. And honestly, it begs the question for me of, whether Pittsburgh drafted solely on need and abandoned their board, because it's hard to believe Pickett was ranked that far ahead of the other quarterbacks. And for the Steelers, Kevin Colbert is retiring soon, and he's leaving the franchise with a potential franchise quarterback. Last time we saw this was with Baltimore when Ozzie Newsome retired and he gave them Lamar Jackson. If this works out, which, I'm never going to rule out, Pittsburgh is set up for like 10 to 15 years, but it just seems like a reach to me and just a large leap of faith. Who knows? Maybe Pickett can prove me wrong, but honestly, I'm not a Kenny Pickett guy. He can start week one.
Is not, but why not?
He can start week one, but I just
tell me what's wrong with him.
I'd rather bank on upside rather than
I
think would be a game manager.
Look at the Steelers' history. Right? When have they had a quarterback like that? They've had good, stable pocket passers that will do you no wrong. Terry Bradshaw.
Well, Big Ben could move around until
so can Pickett.
Later years.
His best play last year was a literal 54-yard run where he faked a slide. So it's not like the dude cannot move. He is, and look, for him to have 5-year experience, he's going in this knowing different coverages, different college teams, different college schemes. He's seen it all. Like, he's a 5-year starter. That's really big. And I think for the Steelers, that's what you need right now. You don't need to spend your time trying to build up this quarterback. You need to spend your time making sure the defense is right and making sure that you can score points with the players you have. Focus on building up guys like Chase Claypool, getting Deontay Johnson better. Now you have George Pickens. I think Pickett to Pickens is going to be really good. And as a Browns fan, I'm scared because now we don't have a guy in Malik Willis who's really similar to Lamar Jackson, which is really easy to game plan for. It's not. Now you have a guy who's similar to Joe Burrow, right? But is more experienced. So that, this was the best ACC player last year in the entire conference, right? He was a Heisman finalist. He's the only Heisman finalist out of the quarterbacks who's ever even been one. And he's the only one that's actually had true bona fide NFL level production. I'm all for this pick. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say he's going to win him a Super Bowl, but I think if out of all the quarterbacks out there, he gives the Pittsburgh Steelers the best chance.
I think he's going to start week one. I don't know if he's
going to start week. I'm hoping he does. I wouldn't mind if Trubisky does, but I will say this.
I think Pickett's ready to go. I think he's the most NFL ready guy.
I think that's kind of the consensus thing, just because, like I mentioned, right, 5-year starter in the NFL. But I'll go on record. I think he continues the Steelers' winning season streak. If he's the week 1 starter, I say he continues it. And look, I think he's the best I think he would, out of all the quarterbacks drafted, I think he has the best season out of any one of them.
I don't know. Well, only reason I don't know about that is because I have to check their schedule. I don't know how easy stuff it is, but.
I mean, no, it's going to be hard. You have to play the AFC North teams, and then you have to play the second place teams. So I'm not going to cap or anything. Like, it's going to be a tough road, but I like the pick. Obviously, I like it more than Srikar does. And I think Kenny Pickett was by far and away the right selection for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, whereas the Titans should have taken Malik Willis. And I think that's a good fit. The NFL is a lot about situations, and I just don't think the Steelers staff was ready to have to train Malik Willis, and I'm so on board with that. Let's kind of switch it up. Let's go on to, another thing that I guess we kind of expected and predicted. just at pick 16, not pick 11. It was the first trade of the NFL draft. It was the Saints giving up a decent amount for Olave. I'll let Srikar get into some of the trade details. Yeah, I mean, first trade in the draft, Chris Olave, the third receiver to go off the board. Second, Ohio State. They go back to back. That's my guy, one of my favorite Ohio State players ever. So I'll let Srikar go start off. What do you think? And do you think the package was too much?
Well, I'll preface this by saying nobody makes bigger trade ups for non-quarterbacks than Mickey Loomis. He has just a long history of this dating back to 2018. He gave up a future first round pick. He went from, I believe, 27 to 15 or 16, 14, something like that.
Davenport, right?
Take Marcus Davenport. I think it was 14. And this year, between his trades with the Eagles and Commanders, Loomis moved 16, 98, 101, 120, and 237, along with future first and second round picks to take Chris Olave. If Olave isn't an all-pro caliber player, I'm going to say it, that's a significant mistake, because New Orleans is now, I wouldn't say in a box, but they're a little bit, kind of lagging moving forward because they don't have a long-term quarterback. Jameis Winston is cool, but I don't know if he's the future, and, you got no cap space. So they gave up a fortune for Chris Olave. I really hope Olave pans out. That's all I'll say.
Well, first of all, it was for Olave and Penning, right? Because
Yeah,
that was
and then Penning, you don't like Penning.
Yeah, so I don't like the Penning pick. That was my argument that was one of the guys for least. We were gonna potentially do a least favorite pick. That was probably gonna be mine. Again, I've gone back and forth with people on like our TikTok about this too. He does not fit their scheme. He is a power run scheme. The Saints do not run that. He's too physical. He's too grabby, and it's too many holding penalties that you just do not want to have to deal with. But for Chris Olave, I will say this. You mentioned the cap space. Think about it, though, right? The things that they gave up, all those picks, they don't have to pay those players. So they really just I know
it's still cheap.
It is still cheap, but it's guys that you might have to pay in the long run. And, look, I agree that, trading up to 11 was a little bit iffy. But if you look at how the rest of the draft went, guys did get taken, right? Like J-Mo got taken at 12. Jahan Dotson got taken at 16. So it's not like Olave was for sure going to be there. And I think Olave is going to be a great fit in this offense. I think that was a consensus, Saints pick that I had in my mind. And I think it's a good pick. Sure, the expectations are going to be there and people are going to mention the package that they gave up. I'm just really disappointed in the Penning pick from the Saints, to be honest. I thought, obviously, with the tackles left, he was probably the best one available, but he just wasn't for the Saints. Like, I just don't know if he's going to be, a plug-and-play left tackle who's going to go crazy to start off. I'm just too, angry at the scheme fit and then, again, his kind of traits. But, look, he's a really good blocker. Like, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if he was the right fit for the Saints. But I think the package for Olave was a lot, especially for Penning too, because these guys have to, as you mentioned, have to be high impact players right away. But to say that the Saints lost, it's not going to be a loss if these guys.
Well, no, yeah. If Olave pans out, it's not a loss.
And Penning, yeah, just because Penning's not a scheme fit doesn't mean he can't. Like, I'm just not a fan of it, and I just don't think it'll, really help them right away. And I kind of see a Jonah Williams type thing without the injuries. But look, Saints have scouts; they know what they're doing. I'm gonna trust the Olave pick. I'm gonna see how the Penning pick goes out, but I'm just throwing it out there. If I was the GM, I'm not gonna do it. Well, all right, let's kind of transition to another kind of topic. We're going quick through these things. Srikar named it "The Rich Get Richer," and we went back and forth on our group chat about this, about who was really the number one team that won. Srikar had the Ravens and Jack and I had the Chiefs. So and it's so ironic. We've gone back and forth on the Chiefs and Ravens a lot previously in the pod, with it being their futures. I went with Chiefs, Jack went with the Ravens. Just a little bragging rights I had to throw in there about which team had the better future. But I'll let Srikar start. Why were the Ravens your number one draft winner?
Well, I feel like it was a toss-up for one. If you want to put Chiefs at one, that's fine. I think the work that Eric DaCosta and Brett Beach did to match value with need throughout the entire draft was really good. It was great on both of them. And we saw why both of those teams are consistently in the mix for a deep postseason run. And, Baltimore, I'll just go over the draft classes real quick. Baltimore, it's just an absurd draft for them. You get Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, David Ojabo, Travis Jones, and Tyler Beatty. All guys I really like, especially Tyler Beatty. I think he'll be great in Baltimore's system, which really relies on the run. A huge haul for Eric DeCosta there. In Kansas City, the Chiefs brought in Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, along with Sky Moore, Brian Cook, Leo Chenal. It's just good teams getting better. I literally, there's no faults in either of these teams in terms of this draft process. If you want to take the Chiefs at 1, that's fine. I won't necessarily disagree. If I just had to make a prediction on which draft class will be better going into the future, I would bet on Baltimore.
I think for Baltimore, obviously you already named the players. I think for value and circumstance, I just have to go with Kansas City because they addressed a lot of positions of need and they got them at such great prices. And that's the same thing for the Ravens. The Ravens always do this best player available strategy, and it works a lot of the time. Yeah. So I'm not going to follow them again. It's as Srikar mentioned. I think the Ravens are my number 2. But also with Kyle Hamilton, right? You're kind of getting him here, and then you have to get rid of Chuck Clark, right? So that's going to be another process. But yeah, David Ojabo is really just you're banking on his production from the 11.5 sacks last year with the Achilles injury. My favorite pick from the Ravens was Travis Jones. I wanted him really badly, and you got this guy in like the 3rd round, I believe. Yeah, 3rd round.
Yeah, 3rd round.
Great pick. I thought he was the best defensive tackle besides Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. So
I had him going 1st round in my mock draft or in our mock draft. Yeah.
Yes. Kudos to the Ravens for getting him there. For me, the Chiefs again. My favorite pick for the Chiefs was Leo Chenal. We went back and forth on about the linebackers. I think he's got NFL caliber pass rushing instincts for a linebacker. He can read the A and B gaps tremendously. And as Jack also mentioned in our chat, he's a really great blitzer and an athlete. So great pick there. They need that. He's better than Daniel Sorensen. So good job, Chiefs. And then Karlaftis is going to be great alongside Chris Jones down there at the edge. And then Trent McDuffie, he's really versatile. I think they're going to keep him at nickel corner. And for the Chiefs, you really need that, especially when you play these type of teams who have good slot receivers. So good haul there. And then for the Ravens, again, same thing. The rich get richer. I think just flat out W's all around. Mm-hmm. Man, I'm gonna hate having to play these two teams in the AFC. I think. Look, as of right now, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think the Ravens will win the AFC North, especially with this class that they got to. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's contingent also on Deshaun Watson's suspension, but I think we're kind of both assuming it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think the Ravens are going to win the AFC North.
And didn't we have a take? It was like top 3 in the AFC.
The Ravens?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but honestly,
I'll make that argument. I'll say
why don't we put that right now? The Ravens are a top 3 team in the AFC. I think we're gonna go Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens.
It's Bills, the team. Chiefs, Ravens for me.
So I got Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. He's got Bills, Chiefs, Ravens.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's our top 3 in the AFC.
Yep.
All right. Next up is going to be, we had to talk about it. It's the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, everybody was so ready for what they were going to do with their 2 first-round picks, what receiver was going to fall to them, and they did not take anybody in day 1. Now, honestly, I wasn't surprised that they didn't take anybody. With the guys that they had left, I was not surprised at all. And they waited, and then they traded up with the Vikings for pick 34, and they end up taking Christian Watson, the 6'4" athletic beast out of North Dakota State. We've seen some North Dakota States get drafted recently, with the only one that has done some NFL relevant impact being Carson Wentz, and some other quarterback, I don't know, number 5 or whatever. He's kind of mid.
No one knows about him.
It's our. I had to get some weekly Trey Lance or Kyle Shanahan slander. We always do it on this show. But yeah, I think the Packers stayed up patient, moved up. Christian Watson, I like it. I think he's got all the tools to be a receiver 1. My only thing is, Rodgers loves guys that he can trust. And is Christian Watson really going to be a guy that right away Rodgers is going to look for pre-snap, going to throw to him his way every time? I don't know. I'm really kind of unsure with how this whole thing is going to go down. I think Packers fans are with me on that. one thing I will say is the guys that they got, the true Georgia Bulldogs, in Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. Quay Walker, I was a huge fan of. Me and a couple scouts on my team both agreed that this guy is really, really solid. We liked him more than Nakobe Dean, which is pretty surprising to a lot of people. But he's a really good linebacker. I think he's a better hybrid. And then, Devontae Wyatt, a guy that can line up alongside Kenny Clark, a guy that can line up alongside Rashawn Gary. That's a really nice defense that the Packers have going into this. And I think he's a really good help to replace Zadarius Smith, just because I think Rashawn Gary he's Zadarius Smith with more upside. Like, I think that's, people started to think he was a bust, but not at all. I think he's done himself some really, I think he's made a really good impact with the reps he was given. So I don't know what the line is kind of look like. I think they're gonna probably move Devontae Wyatt maybe out to edge, right?
No, they're gonna
And
keep
then
him inside with Kenny Clark, I think.
nah, I mean, because the Packers run a 3-4, so you're not gonna put two guys like that.
No, I'm
And
not
Kenny
really
Clark,
sure.
so I think Kenny Clark's gonna be the nose tackle, and what I'm thinking is they're probably gonna put Wyatt over Dean Lowry, or Jerron Reed, one of the two. And then
Probably
I think
Jeremy.
and then they're probably gonna put like a guy like Rashawn Gary as like a strong side linebacker who will play on the edge,
Yeah.
because he's not like an end. And then they'll probably put like Preston Smith weak side. So that's kind of how the Packers defense is gonna work for all you Packers fans watching. But I'll let you get started. What do you think about the Christian Watson receiver pick? Do you think it was worthy of a second round selection? What upside would you give him? Do you think he's better than any of the first round guys? Take it away.
Yeah, it's just if you were a Packer fan, it was just being nervous on top of anger, as it is with every draft. But look, Friday, big trade with a divisional rival, we should mention, and finally, a receiver, finally. It took Green Bay packaging both second-round picks for the Vikings to move up to 34, but Brian Gutekunst, he plucked Christian Watson, and, he's one of the most polarizing prospects in this draft. There's some people like me who love, the traits, size, speed. I love what I see there. There's other people in the media that think he's really raw. He's got inconsistent hands, which I also see, but, I like that Green Bay banked on his upside here, and I think Rodgers can, make him good. But I think if Green Bay is going to be, a multi-dimensional offense with a happy quarterback, because as you mentioned before, it's all about keeping Aaron Rodgers happy, the $50 million guy. They need Watson to pan out both quickly and over the long haul. So I think Watson will pan out in Green Bay if I had to make a guess. This was a guy that I wanted the Niners to draft at 61 a very, very, very long time ago, and he just flew up draft boards after the combine. Very happy for him. But I don't mind the Christian Watson selection. I don't mind taking Walker and Wyatt in the first round. I actually texted Anish. He was like, "What do you think the Packers are going to do at 22 on the day of the draft?" And I said, "Don't be surprised if it's Quay Walker at 22." And it did end up happening. But I don't mind it at all. If I'm a Packers fan, I'm not too mad because I think Christian Watson has some serious wide receiver one potential, and I think Aaron Rodgers can be the guy that gets it out of him.
Right. Yeah. Kudos to you on the Quay Walker. I was literally Jack and I were deciding between Quay and I think a receiver, and in my mock draft, Traylon Burks was available, so I was like, oh God, I cannot pass this up. But yeah, I love the Quay Walker. It's a big up Srikar for kind of calling that. And yeah, I guess for the Packers, what it's probably going to look like is it's going to be Christian Watson on one end, Sammy Watkins on another, and then they'll probably have Lazard in the slot, is what I'm thinking. But you have upside guys like Amari Rodgers, and then where does Randall Cobb end up in all this? It's a really murky receiver room.
I thought they would cut Randall Cobb earlier in the offseason. Now I don't know where the fit is.
I mean, Rodgers wouldn't be happy with that. So it's such a murky team that just really wants to stay relevant. If I'm being honest, I just don't think they're gonna win a championship next year. They'll be in the. I don't know if they're in my Super Bowl bubble. I'm being straight up.
I think they're contenders. It's a weak.
They're always going to be with A-Rod, but I think the Bucks are better. I think the Rams are better. Again, in the rematch, I would still take actually, wait, no, not with Trey Lance. Ooh,
no,
yeah, okay. I think they're probably the third best team in that conference. I want to say, is there any team that I'm overlooking?
Bucks, Rams. No,
I think they're probably still team 3. So yeah, I mean they've got not much to worry about. They're in a really light conference. Really lucky, by the way. Don't be surprised though, Minnesota, if they maybe creep up, because I guess to maybe round out some of our things that happened in the draft. The Lions got JMO. I was a big fan of that. It was another kind of big winner is that the cold hard truth was in an agreement. Everyone's kind of liking the Falcons draft. I am too because they got I'm gonna try and pronounce it. Ebi TK. I can't
Arnold
even say it.
Ebiketie.
Yeah, you know what? I'm always bad at pronunciations, but yeah. And then I think Ritter is actually not that bad of a selection. You got him at pick 74, like it's fine. And then I know Drake London's weird, but hey, still Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, so that's kind of what happened in the draft. Let's go with what the one topic that did not happen in the draft, and it's not going to be the Debo trade. We talk about Debo too much. We'll wait till some more news happens. Not Odell randomly tweeting about it. Get out of here, bro. Like,
just wants attention.
Yeah, you know what, man? This is why we. Nah, I'm kidding. He's a Super Bowl champ. Just had a daughter. Congrats. But yeah, let's go into the Baker Mayfield saga, which did not happen, and it's really, I guess, with the Panthers. That was what the team that they were linked to. The Panthers ended up taking Matt Corral. Now, obviously, I'm the Browns fan here. I didn't expect Baker Mayfield to get traded in the draft. I had no really expectations of anything. I think this really just comes down now. It's really, if there's going to be a trade partner, it's Seattle. I think everybody is really just waiting on it. I just cannot see, in my opinion, a scenario where Seattle goes into a official NFL season with Drew Lock, Jacob Eason, and Geno Smith as your quarterback room. I just cannot envision an NFL team doing that. That is the ultimate sign of saying, hey, we are not going to win this year. Like, I'm sorry, but that I just cannot, envision something like that. And look, to give a 2023 like fourth round pick to get Baker Mayfield, why not? Like, I'm such a Baker defender, and it's like, it's not even like me saying he's going to be a top 5, top 10 guy, which he does have the potential and has shown he can do. It's just like he's getting treated like he's not a quality starter at all, or not even a starter. And I know it's the money, right? You have to pay him 19.
You don't need to make a move right now, though.
You don't, but it's like, I think, yeah, it really just comes down to it. Really, just after the draft, we only now know it's one team that can potentially get him. Because
I'll keep Carolina in that conversation. I'll talk about it.
I don't think so. They're not going to pay Matt Corral first round quarterback. Actually, they're not paying him that money. Sorry, Sam Darnold, the 18 mil. They're just not going to pay 36 mil for Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. I just can't see that.
I mean, Andrew Berry, he decided not to trade Baker Mayfield this weekend, and now we're just going to wait. And if Berry is smart, we wait until some point within training camp. And, the Browns have Deshaun Watson, but don't know whether he's going to play the entire season with a possible suspension looming. We talked about it before.
Right, but they paid money for quarterbacks for that situation. They gave money to.
I'll say this. Mayfield, he's not going to be happy taking the field in Cleveland, but you can at least audition. I mean, the opportunity is still there if you wait into training camp to see what you've got. Barry can just wait until another team's quarterback gets injured, and then Cleveland has leverage to get better draft comp. But right now, only the Seahawks and Panthers make sense. Seattle, you said before, but also Carolina's already short on draft capital next year, and you trade a future third to the Patriots for Matt Corral. Seattle needs someone to compete with Drew Lock or replace him. I don't know if the need is there to make a move right now, though. You can if you want. You can take a flyer. If the Browns are smart about this, Mayfield is going to have to wait before being traded. And I think Andrew Berry is going to play it out that way. And because, something big will happen. Maybe a quarterback goes down, and that's where an opportunity just comes up. And, a team will be desperate enough to trade for Mayfield there. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think it was Barry not wanting to trade Mayfield at the draft. I think it's just teams didn't want to trade for Mayfield at the draft. But you guys, Srikar and Jack know, all my friends know, my favorite executive and the guy that I just look up to in this league, it's that guy, Andrew Berry. I love that dude to death. This guy changed the course of my franchise. I will always love him. And I trust him. The whole Browns motto is "In Barry we trust," and I think you're right, Shriek. I agree with you. I think they wait this out. And you brought up a really good point. If quarterbacks gets injured now, it's all on the table, right? This is a quality guy that you're only really putting a year rental for, right? You can give a contract later, and you don't have to give him really a max extension.
Nope. Yep.
So I think, Baker is the perfect type of guy. He's already used to having to learn new systems. So what's one more, right? I mean, he's learned 4 different systems in 4 years. So it's not like the dude hasn't done that. Again, I'm going to still say Seattle. I'm going to rule out Carolina, though. But if there's a quarterback injury, I don't know, like for the Giants, if like Daniel Jones gets injured during training camp, why not? You didn't pick up Daniel Jones 5th year, right? Like there's so many places where an injury away can just maybe, cause another trade. But as of right now, I think we're both in consensus. They wait this out. Maybe it goes in far into training camp, and I do see that. I think this goes maybe into June or July. But one thing is for certain, and one thing I will say, Baker Mayfield will not show up to any Browns practices or training. He just will not. And if he does, it's going to mess up the entire chemistry. It's just going to be so awkward in that locker room, right? Because we didn't really see Browns players go out publicly and make it known that, hey, we're Baker defenders, which I'm really disappointed in. I thought people would do that. I mean, I saw Myles Garrett say a little bit of stuff, but a little bit disappointed in that. But yeah, I one thing is for certain, Baker Mayfield will not be in a Browns uniform next year, and he will not attend any of our mandatory or optional camp activities.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah. So that's going to be our episode for today. A lot of draft content, a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We're going to see a lot of these guys, in action soon with training camp and OTAs. And hopefully, we talked about your team. And if we didn't, please let us know in some comments down below with some questions. We'll try and get to all of them. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Go don't feel afraid to check out our TikTok and Instagram down below in the description. But yeah, thank you guys. We've been the Cold Hard Truth NFL podcast, and we will see you next time.